We've talked a lot about beginner bikes on this channel. We've talked about them in terms of their outright prowess as god tier beginner bikes or their horsepower per dollar value, but today we're going to talk about the bikes that are the most straight up approachable and beginner friendly. They may not be the cheapest nor the most powerful, but they are the bikes that just about anyone, regardless of their experience, could feel pretty confident on. Let's get into it. It is hard to make a list of the beginner-friendly motorcycles without talking about the Honda Rebel 250. The Motorcycle Safety Foundation literally uses these bikes as the platform of choice for the participants who have never swung a leg over any motorized two-wheeled machine before. Can it really get any more beginner-friendly than that? These bikes are designed to be unintimidating and approachable, and they are just that. Honda made the Rebel relatively unchanged from 1985 until 2017, and if the laws of the free market tell us anything, is that if a motorcycle is this slow, this unattractive, this much of a snooze fest, and still manages to have a 30-plus year production run, then it must have some sort of value. The Rebel 250 is really teeny tiny in its stature, weighing in at just 320 pounds wet with an incredibly approachable 26-inch seat height. The 250 is powered by an air-cooled parallel twin that makes an adorable 16 horsepower and 12 foot-pounds of torque, literally just like a little bit more than a Grom basically. In 2017, the Rebel line was revamped and the Rebel 250 made way for the updated Rebel 300. And while this bike ditched the corny 1980s cruiser aesthetic for a more sleek and modern blacked out look, the approachability still remains at the forefront of this motorcycle. The Rebel 300 has a 286cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine that makes 25 horsepower and 18 foot-pounds of torque. And while this is nearly 30% more peak power than the 250, any beginner rider will still feel very confident on this motorcycle. It's not going to scare anybody. The 300 has an ever so slightly taller seat height at 27 inches and a little bit more portly at 362 pounds, but all things considered, it is hard to find a motorcycle that will be more accommodating of a beginner rider than a Honda Rebel. The super accessible price point is aimed right at beginners too, with the brand new 2023 Rebel 300 costing just $4,750 and a second-hand Rebel 250 costing like $1,000 and maybe a couple tubes of toothpaste depending on where you live. We made a whole dedicated review about the Rebel 250, mostly making fun of it, but at the end of it, I did say that it has a special place in motorcycling history for helping so many people get on two wheels. The Rebel 250 is an amazing motorcycle and it really deserves your attention. If we're talking about beginner sport bikes, you know I've sang my praises of bikes like the R3 or the Ninja 400, and I've beat that horse to a bloody pulp by this point, but these bikes give you a great balance of power for the price, satisfying the most scrupulous spec sheet warriors. And even though they're a great option to get your baby fast boy feet wet and possibly even earn a long-term spot in your stable as a track toy, it doesn't automatically mean they are the most beginner friendly. The Kawasaki Ninja 250 had a long tenure as the beginner sport bike of choice, but that made nearly 37 horsepower before being outshadowed by the Ninja 300 and subsequently 400. 37 ponies might be a little spicy for the infantile squid, no? If only there was a beginner sport bike that was so underpowered and so overweight that your grandma could beat it off the line with her electric shopping cart, that surely would make for the most approachable for beginners. I'm talking about the Suzuki Gixxer 250. Is it fast, fun, or an advisable purchase compared to anything other in the segment? Nope, but it is bound to make just about anyone feel confident riding it. Like, wow, I always thought a motorcycle would be faster than this. If teenage hoodlums can comfortably ride a bird scooter after huffing a few cans of Duster, any person with at least half of their brain cells still intact should be able to pilot a Gixxer 250, which has nearly the same power-to-weight ratio as a rental e-scooter. Suzuki's website chose today of all days to go dark, so bear with me as I source my specs with some seedier secondhand sites. The Gixxer 250 has a liquid-cooled 248cc P-twin that makes a whopping 25 horsepower and 17 foot-pounds of torque. Weighing it at a portly 392 pounds, the Gixxer 250 has a lower power-to-weight ratio than a Rebel 300. Meaning it won't scare any new riders who are just getting their bearings. Plus, these bikes are nearly impossible to kill. Don't ask me how I know. I definitely didn't try to flamethrower one of these and successfully flamethrowed it and shot it with a tank and may have turned it into a scrambler. I have a bit of a history with the Gixxer 250. So you can commit all sorts of unholy acts upon it before it chooses to take a long, good nap. All the more reason the Gixxer 250 has earned a place as one of the most beginner-friendly bikes ever made. Let me take a quick detour from talking about the most beginner-friendly motorcycles ever made to talk about the most beginner-friendly motorcycle community ever made. Our community over at yamanoob.co. One of the best parts about this channel is the ability to have a positive impact on new riders and get them excited about the sport of motorcycling, and our community yamanoob.co offers just that. Our exclusive Discord server is filled with motorcyclists of all skill levels, so new riders can get advice, older riders can offer wisdom, and you too can even get some advice from your very own Papa Yam. I am there mostly every day. Members also gain access to tons of exclusive content and get behind the scenes look at everything that goes on around here. Every membership earns you automatic entries to win one of our giveaway motorcycles, like our brand new KTM RC390 that is our current beginner bike giveaway. So if you like what we do here on the channel and you'd like to get more involved, head over to yamanoob.co and check out all of our membership tiers. Now let's get back to the video. Beginner riders have more options than ever these days, with manufacturers like KTM making cool, edgy, value-driven motorcycles for riders who just can't stomach the idea of a Rebel 250, but are also realistic in their skill set and reserved in their budget. The KTM Duke 390 naked bike and fully fared RC390, which we have in the shop as our newest beginner bike giveaway, FYI, have created a new gold standard for entry-level motorcycles. But what if you need something even more tame and more inexpensive, but still looks like an orange praying mantis cyborg from outer space? Well, I present to you the humble Duke 200. KTM set out to make the most approachable naked motorcycle available with this bike, and it seems they kinda hit the nail on the head. It was manufactured in India, and taking cues from the demands of that market, KTM made a motorcycle that wasn't for alpha chad fast boy knee draggers in training, but for average civilians who wanted a cool and cheap and easy way to commute in densely populated areas. And the Duke is just that. It's a bike that can go just about anywhere and anyone can hop on and feel comfortable to get to and from where they need to go without having a deep understanding of advanced rider techniques. The Duke 200 has a liquid-cooled single-cylinder engine that makes 26 horsepower and 14 foot-pounds of torque. The bike has a 31.5-inch seat height and weighs just 340 pounds sopping wet. Being that lightweight, just about any rider should feel comfortable keeping it upright despite having a slightly taller seat height than some beginner bikes. The overall package for KTM's entry-level motorcycles is highly competitive with features like WB suspension, bi-brake brakes, and switchable rear-wheel ABS. Not to mention the Duke 200 costs less than $4,100, brand spanking new. CF Moto is also a company that is putting beginners at the forefront of their efforts, and bikes like the 300NK are gunning to be the most beginner-friendly motorcycles available. The 300NK checks all the boxes for the beginner-friendly metrics. It makes modest power that isn't going to get anyone in too much trouble. It has comfortable and amenable size and ergonomics, and a super accessible price point. The 300NK has a liquid-cooled 392cc single-cylinder engine that makes a claimed 29 horsepower and 19 foot-pounds of torque. The 300NK is the naked version of the 300 Super Sport and has a wide flat handlebar and mid-mounted foot controls that help the rider feel comfortable and in control of the bike. It has a 31-inch seat height and weighs just 333 pounds, making it quite a bit lighter than other bikes in the class, like the MT-03 that tips the scales at 373 pounds. At the end of the day, the CF Moto 300NK has an MSRP below $4,000, which is a price point that is damn near non-existent for a full-size motorcycle in the year of our Lord 2022. The longevity of these bikes are still a bit up in the air, but people who have owned their ATV and off-road vehicles for a long time have very little qualms. As a company that is straight up gunning for the crowned position as the most beginner-friendly and price-conscious motorcycle company, I had to put the CF Moto 300NK on the list today. Small little dual sport bikes can be pretty beginner-friendly as well. Think about all the years of abuse the Yamaha TW200 has faced on the MSF course. But if you don't want an outright farm bike with Tonka truck tires, there are some other super friendly beginner dual sport bikes like the Suzuki DR200. The DR200 is about as simple of a motorcycle as you can get. It has a tried and true 199cc air-cooled single that is probably a design that is older than a decent percentage of people watching this video. It makes around 20 horsepower and 13 foot-pounds of torque, which is manageable enough for a beginner, but enough power to have a little bit of fun. For a dual sport, the DR200 has a pretty amenable 32-inch seat height. Also, the entire bike weighs just 275 pounds, so it's super easy to throw around and make you feel like you truly are the one in charge. The DR200 is a super low maintenance machine. Like, don't leave untreated gas in it for 6 months without riding it, and otherwise just change the oil, and that's pretty much all you have to do. There may be other dual sport bikes that are better overall, like the WR250R, CRF300L, or the KLX300, but due to its small size, ease of use and maintenance, and super accessible price point under $4,700, the DR200 might be one of the most beginner-friendly dual sport motorcycles ever made. Another beginner-friendly sport bike is the Honda CBR300R. Again, not the best beginner sport bike full stop, but the most beginner-friendly. The CBR300R has one of the least committed riding positions on any fully faired sport bike, with the rider's hands out in front of them, back straight, and legs only slightly pushed backwards. That feature alone makes the CBR beginner friendly, and as a very committed riding stance can often make noobs feel less confident on the bike. The CBR300R is one of the tamer beginner sport bikes as well, but not as much of a dog as the Gixxer 250. It has the same liquid-cooled 286cc single found in the Rebel 300 and the CRF 300L that makes around 30 horsepower. It has a sub 31-inch seat height and weighs 357 pounds. It has Honda reliability and build quality while being just nerdy enough to make even the most inexperienced beginner rider feel adequate amongst their peers. And the last bike on the list today, drum roll please, the Royal Enfield stands are about to sound off. It's the Royal Enfield Meteor 350. What did he say? Yam just endorsed the Meteor 350? Bear with me here. Remember, we're not talking the best beginner bikes ever. We're just talking about the best beginner-friendly motorcycles. And if the Meteor 350 is anything, it is beginner-friendly and popular as hell, which usually go hand in hand. Similar to how KTM designed the Duke 200 to be the sort of everyman's Duke, that regardless of their commitment to the lifestyle, just about anyone can hop on it and get around just fine. The Meteor 350 satisfies the same general audience, and I think it's safe to say that it has been a successful strategy. As of 2022, the Royal Enfield Meteor 350 has taken the top spot as Britain's best-selling motorcycle with an engine larger than 125cc, a spot that was once reserved for the BMW 1250 GS, and that is just Britain, not taking into consideration the monumental amount of these bikes that are sold globally. This bike hits the same way that a Rebel 250 used to. It is so approachable that almost anybody can ride it. It is an air-cooled 350cc single that makes 20 horsepower and 20 foot-pounds of torque. And like most motorcycles from Royal Enfield, it is a really classic and stripped-back bike that has a lot more curb appeal than you'd expect from a bike that costs less than $5,000 brand new. Could most riders start on a larger bike from Royal Enfield like the Scram or the Interceptor? For sure. Does Royal Enfield sell as many of those bikes as they do the 350? Nope, because the 350 is about as beginner-friendly as a motorcycle can be. And it's really cheap too. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you're thirsty for more beginner content, make sure you hit subscribe on the channel and click the notification bell so we can beam those sweet and juicy beginner videos right into your cerebrum. Fact. Firefighters use wetting agents to make water wetter. The chemicals reduce the surface tension of plain water, so it's easier to spread and better soaks into objects, which is why it's known as wet water. Goodbye.